Welcome to part 2 of this episode of Inspiring Entrepreneurs with Dr. Kate McKenzie and Manish Joshi. In this episode, we're going to be discussing the ESGs, how important collaboration is, how small impacts can make a big change, and the definition as well of social impact. So sit back and enjoy. Thank you. Just sort of following on from the challenges discussion, Manish, a question for you, and you've kind of touched on it already, but do you think there's particular challenges for social enterprises in Scotland?
I think sometimes people don't always understand what a social enterprise is. I think there's that kind of block there, right? Because sometimes folk are like, all right, you're just a charity.
Yeah.
Right, and you're not. You're a sustainable business, right? A social enterprise. And I think that sustainability part can be a bit of a challenge sometimes. And I think the social enterprises that are thriving are often thriving despite the ecosystem sometimes. Mm-hmm. You know, actually they're just like, you know what, we've got a great business, we've got a purpose, and we're just going for it. And so I think there's a bit of understanding, there's a bit of like building some, I guess, more capacity in that space to help people kind of really understand what it is. But I think we've got some great support. You know, we've mentioned a lot of these organisations already today, and I think try to get more of that support into universities, into colleges, so that, you know, people coming through those spaces can actually think about a social enterprise as part of their ideation, as part of their curriculum. I think if we can embed more of that into what we're doing, even at a school level, and carry that through. I think part of the problem sometimes is we've got great programs, everything's too siloed, basically, right? So we've got good programs in schools, and then young people leave school and don't necessarily get signposted, and then just kind of stumble upon an Inspire or stumble upon an innovation hatch at the college or whatever it might be. Whereas actually we could create better pathways and, you know, better routes in. And, you know, think about like modern apprentices and graduate apprenticeships. And there's lots of different pathways into some of this stuff, but I'm not sure we always connect the dots. Yeah. So I think we could do a better job of just joining it all up and helping people think about different options that they've got available.
It's that collaboration piece.
Yeah,
absolutely, isn't it? Yeah. And Kate, as someone who's obviously experienced the process of creating a spin out, even if that wasn't the initial plan, and just from your sort of academic expertise, how have you used and utilised like Strathclyde's resources to further your work?
Well, a lot of different ways. One of the things I want to focus on, though, is our continued relationship with the law school. And our continued relationship also with that master's program in the law school, where I sort of came from and where a lot of our research assistants have come from. And it's one of the sort of my favorite pieces of what we do, because we just met with a new cohort of students last week to introduce who we are and what we do, and also alert them to opportunities for internships, placements, all that type of thing, and working with us. And we're getting hopefully to a place where we can actually pay people to work with us that are interns and students. Of course, aside from, you know, any sort of support that we can give them, non-monetary support, sort of building their CV and that type of thing, and giving them references and really advising them on career trajectories and all that kind of thing. That's what we do for all of our students who work with us. That is the single biggest, I hate to put students as a resource, but that is our single sort of biggest resource that we actively engage with the university. It is incredibly helpful to have meeting space, to have space where we can come and do work and meet with people where we don't have to have office space of our own. It's incredibly useful to have access to experts who can help with certain questions and that support. We have, for example, on our board of directors, because we are a spin out, we have a University of Strathclyde observer that sits on our board of directors. And so that person has the opportunity to continue to walk this path with us, right? And to stay connected with us and to give guidance where we need it and support. So it's kind of a bit of a wraparound that is really useful, just to have that sort of, we're not part of the university. No, I don't have an office on campus. People often ask me, but we are a family. Yeah. And so we do still have access to the resources that we can use. And I'm sure that I don't make as much use of all of the resources as I could, but to know that there's that supportive family member there is just really, really helpful, and just helps to give that comfort in the, first year of making a business work is scary times.
And have you felt kind of part of the wider ecosystem, so the other businesses and entrepreneurs?
We just haven't engaged that much because we've grown a little bit more flat than we anticipated. Again, we're only in our 9th month, so I haven't had time to build a big team. So we've kept it really small, which means I've done a lot of the work. So this is the reality of being in your first year, multiple years in, is that when you're the CEO, not only do you wear all of the hats, but you're also responsible for making the thing work, right? And so, no, I haven't connected as much as I probably could with other businesses, with other spin-outs from the university. Certainly, there's lots and lots of room for improvement there, and definitely opportunity. But we remain connected, and people here at the university know about us, and folks from the business school reach out, and we're through our, obviously Francesco is still a professor here at the university, and so through his role also inside the university, finding ways to cross those silos and get out of those silos, I think is really exciting.
Absolutely. And clearly, as we've been discussing, like equipping future generations with the skills that they need to pursue a better future is such an important task for educational institutes. And Strathclyde, Manish, you said it already, we take like an entrepreneurship for all approach, and that aims to offer every student the opportunity to develop entrepreneurial thinking skills that can help them achieve positive change, help them with their employability, etc. It goes a bit wider than just setting up a business. And for example, right now we've got our Exploring Entrepreneurship Challenge, which encourages students to collaborate and kind of create an idea for a sustainable future. So question for both of you, I guess, how important do you think collaboration is? And I know that that's been a key theme of this whole conversation, in encouraging not only like the long-term innovation, but also the development of solutions that are going to, have sustainable and societal benefits. And also, how can programs like this kind of shape the next generation of change makers who might not see themselves or identify as an entrepreneur, but are really passionate about making a difference?
There's that saying, isn't there? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right? And I think collaboration for me is about going far, right? It's about actually having depth and having people to support you along the way. Because actually, as you kind of alluded to, it's a bit of a lonely road sometimes as well, right? Being an entrepreneur, being a CEO, is like I've been a charity CEO, and there's a lot that sits on your shoulders, and actually collaborating with people, having a network around you, I think is invaluable. And actually universities are phenomenal spaces in some ways for doing that. I think part of the challenge is time. People are busy, right? Everyone's busy. And that's understandable. So I think it's about trying to make sure that when you go in with an ask, it's actually quite a meaningful ask, and that you know exactly what you want. And I think being quite clear on your purpose is actually quite a good thing to think about when you're looking to collaborate with people, not just collaborating for the sake of collaborating, but actually going with an end in mind. This is what I'd like to do, or get people excited about a vision. So I think if you can give people a vision and you know where you're going and what you're doing, then I think people will come and offer their help from 30 countries and say, listen, I want because like I want to come and I'm going to speak to you after this and go like, how can I come and help support you in any way, shape or form? Because I'm like, there's something that speaks to you, right? And so I think if you can give people a vision to collaborate and why they should come together, but I also think we need to look at how we create spaces where we make collaboration easier, how we reduce the friction there. We've been talking about some new spaces we're developing at the university, and thinking about if we want to work more with, say, third sector partners or charity sector and others, we've got to figure out how we can reduce some of the friction, right? Just like even simple things like getting on the internet, because not everyone can get on the edge of your own, right? And I understand why we have that, and cybersecurity and all that. So if there's any cybersecurity people listening, we're not looking to contravene any of the cybersecurity. But I think those things do get in the way, actually, sometimes of how you can really effectively collaborate with people, being able to share a bank account or money. Sometimes you try to work with a public sector body and a university and a charity. That's actually not that easy to do, right? Like procurement, all those things. So actually, absolutely, we all want to collaborate, but sometimes the systems and processes that we have, which are there for very good reasons, right? Whether it's GDPR, cybersecurity, procurement, all that kind of stuff. But how can we work to try and remove some of the friction? So I think for me, that's one of the things I'm quite passionate about, is like thinking about how can we work so that we create environments where there's much more osmosis, much more permeable. Like you talk about being part of the family. I think being able to have businesses, organisations coming in and out of the university where people are like, of course I can hang around at Strathclyde because it's a place of useful learning, and I'm a lifelong student and I want to get upskilled, and they do this great MOOC and they've got micro credentials, and so I think there's lots of stuff we offer. Whether people always know that we offer all those things outside of a undergrad degree, a master's degree, a postgrad study, because actually there's a whole range of knowledge exchange, KTPs, like knowledge transfer partnerships. There's all kinds of things that we can actually do with external organizations, and I think sometimes we don't even know about them to be able to communicate them externally, and so we can't expect other people to know about them. So then you stumble upon these ideas, right? People come in and they're like, oh, I'd like to do it. You're like, wow, okay, let's do that. So yeah, I think there's all of that side of things too.
To piggyback on that a bit, I think that one of the most important pieces of collaboration is it brings to you a diversity of perspectives. Mm-hmm. I have an idea in my mind and a vision, and that may be wonderful and good, but if I'm not willing to hear and take into account other perspectives, then that might take me down a road that is not a good road, right? So this is where I think collaboration is so beautiful, because it does open you to a diversity of opinions, perspectives, lived experiences that can enrich any kind of idea, vision, purpose or goal that you have. And obviously, don't have to take everyone's ideas and try to pack them into one, but being open to that diversity of views and perspectives and experiences, I think, is really, really crucial to really making something work, and finding also, maybe that wasn't the best idea to go that way. Maybe we should go this way, and having that exposure to difference, I think, is really, really important.
So many businesses are now embedding an ESG mindset into their operations. How do you think entrepreneurs, especially social entrepreneurs, can effectively integrate ESG principles into their ventures from the offset?
So this is a really, really important piece of everything that we do. ESG, for anyone who doesn't know, is environmental, social, and governance related things. So part of what we as C2LI do as a service, as a product, is we work with corporations to make sure that they're including the E part of the ESG, the environmental piece. So that's just part of what we do. It's part of our business. But how we embed it for us, the social piece is, we're a social enterprise, but, you put that label on it. That doesn't mean yet that you're getting there. For us, the E piece is easy. Everything we do is related to environmental work and climate change. The S piece for us is part of everything that we do. And that means that our online platform is meant to be, part of our social mission is to level the playing field for information. But more importantly for me, when we're looking at the governance piece, the social and the environmental, is that they don't exist in vacuums. All three of these pieces are part of the same puzzle, right? And I often say, if you're not an intersectional climate change activist, then are you a climate change activist?
Absolutely.
Because climate change touches every area of life now.
Yeah.
And so it has to touch everything that we do. One of the most important ways that I approach embedding these important things into the way that we do business is, just one example, in what do we want our global advisory board to look like? I want that board to reflect who we are. So I need that board to be diverse in a variety of ways. I need them to have diversity of location. And where are they even from? I need them to have diversity of experience and expertise. I need to have diversity in all the ways that you experience diversity, whether it's gender, ethnicity, ability, whatever it is. I want to have as much diversity as possible on my board, targeting certain things, obviously. Again, because the presence of difference, it makes everything more robust and more valuable.
No, completely.
And so that is something that we strive for. Another really important way that so that's in the governance. We're embedding all these things in our governance through our boards and all that kind of a thing. Another really important way that we embed this into our business is the way that we do business. We have national rapporteurs. I've mentioned them a couple of times. We have local experts, legal experts in the community that we're serving. So we're not going to, if I have a client who is somewhere in South America, I'm not going to bring an expert, a European expert, right? I'm going to use my local expert who is from the jurisdiction, has expertise in the jurisdiction, so that frankly, money doesn't have to flow in the wrong direction, right? We sit in the global north. Our funding currently comes from Scottish government. I'm not going to participate in an extractive industry, right? If I'm bringing information to someone from a global south country, then I'm going to pay the expert in that country to provide that information. That is just fundamentally baked into our business model. And it's, I want to say relatively simple for us to start there because we're just starting and growing it with that in mind. But that is actually a really important choice to make, right? To embed that from the very beginning into the way that you do business. And it can make things a little bit harder and a little bit more challenging, but it's worth it in the end because, again, that presence of difference is so crucial.
No, and you're so right. You're just right. I was talking to a friend this week, and we both used to work in the climate space, and he's doing some consultancy. He said, you know what, he's like, somebody phoned me up the other day, and we're going to fly into New York for a morning to facilitate a meeting. And he said no, right? Because he's got integrity. But there's lots of other people who would do that. And actually, there's a real issue within the space, within climate change, between this global north and south. It's a tension that sits there, you know that.
Tension, yeah.
But the only way you're going to change it is by being intentional. And I think a lot of this work around ESG is about being intentional. And actually, it is definitely easier to do this when you're starting out. And so your questions around how you do it, I think you bake it in, right? Now, it doesn't mean everyone's got to be a B Corp. But you can look at something like B Corp or social value quality mark or something like that as an audit tool, as a way to go, hey, that's the benchmark. So how do we make sure that our policies all align with that benchmark? How do we make sure that our governance is aligning with that benchmark? Now, in some instances, B Corp makes sense for people. In other instances, it's maybe not the right thing. But I think you can bake it in from the start. But even if you've not baked it in, doesn't mean you can't do it or you shouldn't do it. I think it's maybe a bit harder. Maybe sometimes you just have to rip stuff up and start again, because actually sometimes it's harder just to retrofit it and you can just try something new. But I do think it's becoming a bigger part of the governance landscape for charities, for corporations. It's already there, and in some ways I think actually businesses are ahead of other sectors, actually ahead of the charity sector.
That's driven by regulation.
By regulation, right?
Yes.
By law, by policy,
exactly.
Right? And so and also sometimes by money too, right? Because it makes good business sense.
It
because
makes good business sense.
Carbon credits or whatever else you're doing, you know, and there's obviously a whole issue around that. But the regulation's driven some of that.
Yep.
People are moving faster, and then the third sector or voluntary sector and other sectors are playing catch up a lot of the time. But actually, you know, imitation's the greatest form of flattery, right? So actually, lots of people have done it.
Yeah.
You don't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel. And I think the other thing that's going to start changing and moving it from a regulatory perspective is things like what gets discussed this year in Azerbaijan and you know, these climate conferences every year. That filters down. So it's decided by 194 countries. It filters down to local level. And we're going to see more and more things like carbon accounting. So actually your balance sheet is going to have to account for your carbon assets, your stranded assets effectively, but also what's happening in Scope 3 emissions and all this.
So interesting because Scope 3 is now also there's discussion about how do you capture advised emissions.
Oh, so what?
So if you're a lawyer or you're a risk analyst or something like that, does your advice also how do you capture that if those emissions of the advice you've given? So just I jumped in.
No, but that's interesting.
The legal profession is really grappling with this right now. Is how do we? Obviously, there's lots of people who are like, "What? No. Why are we? This is
we didn't get that advice. We're indemnified.
How do you
be indemnified? Will they?
Exactly. So there's lots of movement happening.
Yeah.
And it's such a complex world, and it does trickle down. But somebody has to do that work of trickling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. For the next question, in a couple of sentences, How do you define social impact in your respective fields, and how do you measure success?
I think social impact is making a tangible change for people on the ground, right? So that it has to be something that actually can be measured in some way, shape or form. Sometimes that's qualitative, sometimes that's quantitative. So I think the measures can be different, but I think it has to deliver something tangible. I think like in the work I'm doing, I will have failed if I spent the next couple of years just talking and being on podcasts and doing things like that. And we haven't actually tried to improve the lives of people in and around this area, working with the university, looking at how we create more collaborative environments on the campus, and where we're trying to shift the needle on things around inequalities, mental health and well-being, communities and citizenship. So there has to be things there. That is hard work though, right? And actually making sure you're measuring the right things is what I think is critical in that, and that the things that you're doing actually have a multiplier effect as well. Sometimes you can make small actions which actually have bigger impact than actually sometimes try to do something really big that might not have as big an impact. So I think it's understanding what that impact's going to be as well.
Great answer, thank you.
I see the social impact that we have and how we measure it in three different ways, or three complementary ways, I think, if you will. So there's internally what we do with our staff, and with the various sort of research assistants that we've had over the past. Brief example, one of the first LLM cohorts we worked with here at Strathclyde, I think about 4 or 5 years ago now, we had a group of research assistants who were working with us in that first year. They wanted to stay on and continue the work. I couldn't pay them. So instead, what I decided to do, I suddenly had 28 research assistants from 13 different countries, so they could have a progression on their CV. They had a year of being a research assistant, and then they became a senior research assistant with supervisory duties for for some of these other folks. So then I like to follow their careers, and that is one way that we have social impact, and that is with making sure that the young people, especially who do work with us, stay connected and can continue to have their own sort of benefit and value from working with us because they've given us their time. That's one piece. That's sort of our people, where I think we have a social impact. The second, maybe this ought to be the first, and that is our platform, right? Our climate litigation knowledge hub. That is open access, and it will continue to grow. We're seeking philanthropic funding actually to really build it out and make it as big as it can be. Lots of resources and time go into making this thing, but the idea there is to level the playing field for people who don't have access to a legal education and a lawyer and all these types of things, right? It's leveling that playing field, making information available to broader society. That's the maybe first. The other one is the second one. The third way that we have and hope to seek to have social impact and also measure it is that when we do larger projects, for example, we're hoping to get a 2-year project that we'll be doing with a major partner, the IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature. And that will be a project that looks at 3 specific small island states. We will have a component in that project which will include sort of a marketing piece. So we'll have small little miniature documentaries. We'll have someone capturing the work that's being done with the local communities, et cetera. Rather than hiring them in Scotland and sending to these places, we're hiring locally. Good. So we use the Today agency. We're connected with them through the Challenges group, and they hire students who have, as a film student to do the filmography, that type of thing. So we will be hiring local students to do that work. And that is another way that we build that social impact into our bidding for big projects and our proposal process, because again, it is such an important piece to what we do to make sure that we're embedding that impact locally where we do the work.
Okay, thank you so much. Final question. What advice would you give to aspiring social entrepreneurs who want to tackle big issues like climate change?
Don't get discouraged by the weight and size of the problem. And especially when you're starting out, I think it's important to, yes, try to make things work as you originally thought they were, but when they're not working, it's okay to pivot. It's okay to say, okay, this thing that we thought was going to work didn't work. How can we shift to make it still get to our goal and maybe even have better success? So it's hard once you have an idea to let go of it and pivot. But I think it's really, really important to stay open to perspectives and feedback and suggestions, because it also allows you then, and you said something earlier at the very, very beginning about failure and not being afraid to fail. Having a mindset that allows you to see failure as an opportunity is really hard, but also, I think, really, really important. I completely agree. And crucially, take care of yourself. Give yourself time to recover and take breaks, and don't drive yourself into burnout.
Do you know, I think that's a really good point. I've worked a lot with climate activists over the years and have watched lots and lots of activists burn out. And I think, we hear talk about entrepreneurs and innovators, but I think they can be guilty of the same thing.
Yeah.
And actually, it's people who are passionate, so passionate, and care so much. And I think actually younger people now have no shortage of things to care about. Because we really have screwed up this planet.
Yep.
And it's not in a great place. But I think don't be disheartened by that, right? Because every crisis is also an opportunity. It's an opportunity to innovate. It's an opportunity to do new things. I would encourage people to find like-minded individuals, because I think you want some journeymen and women for the journey ahead, because it will be a long journey. There are bumps in the road, and it's not always plain sailing. But if you've got good people around you, they don't always have to be part of your business. They can be mentors, they can be coaches, and actually finding a mentor is one of the key things, I think. If you can find somebody who just makes you better. Like a really good mentor is not somebody you just go and download onto. I think a really good mentor is somebody that in their company you are better within weeks or months because you're learning from them all the time. So find somebody else that's maybe a wee bit further ahead on the journey than you, learn from them. I think the tech industry is not bad at that, actually. Sometimes I think they're quite good at buddying you up or pairing you or going, look, here's so-and-so, they've just exited, or there's 3 years down the line. And people are, I think you find people are very giving, actually, off their time. Everyone likes to drink coffee on the whole, I think. And so just asking somebody for a cup of coffee. But I would encourage people to don't be scared by the size of the problem. Break it down. Climate change is huge, it's all encompassing, but there are small areas that you can focus in on. So find your niche, find where you want to work, and find some people to journey with you, I think.
Such a positive, lovely note to end on. So thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute honour and privilege. I've learned so much, and I think it's going to be a brilliant episode, so thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you for having us.
And that's it for this episode of Inspiring Entrepreneurs. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button from whichever platform you're listening on. And if you have any feedback, we'd love you to leave a rating or review, as this can help new listeners find us. Thank you.